Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome in, everyone. Welcome back to Daily Wolves. It is, of course, me, Chris. You're getting bored of my voice by now, so I've got company this time, just so it's not always me. So with me today is Nathan. Hey, Nathan.
Hey, Chris. Hey, everyone. Hope we're all keeping well on this fine Tuesday morning.
Yeah, I am. I'm feeling, I think as I mentioned yesterday, or on the most recent pod that went out, it's a sense of, I guess, relief more than anything else. I can't really say it's joy, but it's a sense of relief that something is happening, that things are turning one way or another, things are moving.
Yeah. I think the feeling is sort of mirrored here as well. It's just that it had been so long of the same stuff and the same. Yeah, I mean, it was way past its due date for O'Neill to be moving on and for just some change to happen, as you say. I mean, it can't keep going on the way it was. So, yeah, a refreshed feeling, which feels like a really weird thing to say when you're second from bottom and a fair few points off safety. But hey, a bit of positivity to start the episodes as we always try and do.
Yeah, so as we record this, just to summarize where we're at timeline-wise, it is Monday evening on the 16th of December. As of the moment of recording, there is still no official confirmation from Wolves on who the next managerial signing will be. I'm putting that out there just in case by the time this episode is heard by someone, there is confirmation of who the next signing will be. But we're all pretty confident at the moment based on all the information coming out from a variety of sources on the interweb. Of the name I mentioned last night, Vitor Pereira. I think I've pronounced that wrong, doing it off the top of my head. But before we get into the whole managerial freight train, I did want to take a moment because now that I've got you here, Nathan, just to rewind a bit to the weekend and get I haven't had a chance to speak to you and get any of your thoughts about that terrible outcome, that terrible game. And all of that. So, I mean, did you watch the game and just talk me through your experience?
It wasn't a good one. Yeah, similar to so many recent weeks. Yeah, I was able to watch the game. I think it's another massively disappointing afternoon and another one where it was just more of the same issues coming up again and again, where we concede soft goals and set piece goals, and we're in situations yet again where our players are losing their heads. And there are points where I felt sorry for certain people, and whether that's sort of the management team or the players themselves, because sometimes we have been slightly unlucky. But this was just a summary. If there was a game to summarise how our season's gone, I think the Ipswich game was pretty much there, wasn't it? It was like, yet again, we fall behind to what was a circus goal. I mean, their first goal, whatever's going on there, it's just a complete mess. And then we've got that period of kind of the heads go down and players are in a bit of a slump. And then they do well, to be fair to them again, sort of that fight was there, and they proved that they were sort of playing for the club and giving it everything they've got, and worked so hard to get back into the game and earn that sort of getting that goal back, to then go and throw it away in the most needless fashion is just sums us up, really. You know, we've got some quality going forwards. We create chances. We can dominate games in the Premier League for periods, but then our defending ultimately lets us down. And I think it was long overdue that O'Neill was kind of on the chopping board for these poor results, really.
Yeah, it was the first half was pretty much just a doldrum. It was just depressing to watch that first half. Second half, it felt typically that, you know, once we equalized, there was a lot of momentum and there was quite a few chances actually, and it felt like it was only going to go one way. And then I think I said, you know, and I'm sure you got the same feeling, that in the dying moments when that, firstly, in the with 5 minutes to go, suddenly Ipswich, we started to let them back into the game and sitting deeper, and almost that, I guess, that sense of panic of we can't throw this away. And then the moment the ball was headed out for that corner, I was just thinking, this is it. This is a goal.
Yeah, it's just the sense of impending doom that we have when we're going through full games because we can't avoid set pieces. It's a big part of football, and unfortunately, it is the most obvious thing that we're getting wrong every single week. And then the other goals that we're conceding are off the back of lack of confidence, lack of organisation. There's just so many things going wrong. And again, at full time, the players sort of get into boiling point and sort of emotions are running high, and they obviously all care very much, but yet again, just completely losing their bottle with it. And, you know, Cunha ripping glasses off the head of one of the Ipswich coaching staff, and then Aït-Nouri got sent off in the process as well. I mean, you know, I think those two moments were actually separate, to be fair, but just complete mayhem. And again, that sort of represents what we've been about, and it's a shame that, I don't know, I mean, the captaincy moving from Lamina to Semedo and all these sort of, obviously around the change room, I can't imagine it's a great place at the minute, but yeah, just whatever's happened under O'Neill just didn't work, and he's had so many chances, and I think that it was long overdue. I think we've all been saying that now.
Yeah, the thing with the set pieces as well, I was chatting to someone earlier, and we're like, when there's always someone free at the far post, why is there never anyone just standing on the post? Like, we've never got anyone just guarding that area. We're so bad at it. Because if there's a guy there, there's a chance of blocking it, but there's never anyone there. You think just when we're that poor, go back to basics, go back to school, you know, like just fundamentals.
I just don't get it. I mean, if you're going to do zonal, actually make sure that you're picking up threatening zones.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a fan of zonal. I know clubs kind of the big six tend to do like this half and half. Like they'll have the blockers, but then they'll still kind of have the main threats sort of being man marked. If we look at likes of Arsenal, who are, you know, fantastic at their set pieces, and it's been one of their main threats this season. Even defensively, they're very good with them, and that's kind of the model they go with. But the fact that we've just gone with what seems to be almost at times fully zonal, it just didn't make sense to any of us. And we've been trying to decipher it throughout the whole season. And O'Neill, in his post-match conference after Ipswich, is essentially throwing the players under the bus with his comments by saying, you know, if we defend like that and people aren't in the right places, then of course we're going to concede goals. And it you know, maybe that's kind of a reflection on O'Neill's feeling at the time and feeling like he's coming to the end anyway. Maybe he knew he was getting the boot, and maybe that's why he's coming out of that comment at this point. But yeah, just so frustrating. And yet again, it's their tallest guy who's not being picked up. Like, how are we not able to do that?
Yeah, the last few games, his press conferences have been giving more and more like words against what the club have been doing, whether it was about transfers and money and stuff, and then now getting harsher on the players the last couple of games. And I do wonder if, on top of the actual defeat itself, the press conference and also the fact that the last two games have seen this like aftermath live on TV and in front of how many thousands of people are in a stadium, the fact that it's now getting so publicly humiliating of the lack of discipline, that has possibly had a bigger impact in like, okay, now it's time, because it's not just about defeats now, it's actually making us look bad overall.
Yeah, it's those sorts of public outbursts of lack of discipline, as you say, are just never good, because it's just piling the pressure onto everyone at the club. And on top of that, it makes us, the fans, look at it and go like, these are professional footballers. You know, these aren't kids. These are people that are meant to be role models. And when they're acting like that, I know that it's a high stress environment, and none of us here talking about it can fully comprehend what it's like to be in those situations. But there's still a minimum level of how you should carry yourself around. And I think I'm assuming that all the players are going to feel really disappointed with sort of the way they've reacted to some of that, because no matter what it is, if you're going to get angry and sort of throw your toys out the pram, do it in the changing rooms. Don't do it on the pitch, because it just makes everyone at the club look silly.
Yeah, because and the thing that bugs me as well, and I don't know if anyone's talking about this, and I know in the heat of the moment, again, people don't think about this stuff, but you mentioned the fact they're role models, and they're professionals, and yeah, people get emotional, but also most of that stuff, because it always happens on the touchline near the dugouts. That at Molineux, that's like the family enclosure side. Like that side is that lower area is all family enclosure and kids and things. And as a parent, I'm very aware that kids who idolize these people are watching them then react and push people and shove coaches and, you know, have to get dragged off and stuff like that. And it's not, I'm possibly taking this a bit too extreme, but like as a parent, I don't want to be taking my kid to a game where they idolize or respect like these players getting paid hundreds of thousands of pounds or whatever it is, and then for them to see them pushing everyone and fighting and thinking that that's okay because they're doing it week in week out. And it's just, for me, that's why I was so frustrated and spoke about it yesterday. I'm really, I don't want that going on at my club.
No, and it, as you said, it's such a poor showing, and the fact that it happened in the previous fixture with Lamina sort of throwing his toys at the pram as well, with his altercation with Bowen and some of the Wolves coaching staff, and that it's happened again straight away in the next game. That's almost the part that left me the most disappointed, in that clearly none of the chats and even the removal of Lamina's captaincy and Semedo becoming captain for the game against it, all of that really had no effect. And that's the most worrying part, is as a squad, if you see your captain reacting that way in the game against West Ham, I mean, we can talk about Lamina individually, but just generally as a squad, your reaction should be, oh, that's bad, that we shouldn't be doing that. And there should be a real talking to as the whole squad going, this is unacceptable. And the fact that his captaincy was removed showed how important, O'Neill saw that as a sort of, outburst. And then for it to happen for two players to be involved in something in the game straight afterwards, it's just so poor. So, here's fingers crossed to whoever comes in, if it is going to be this Vitor Pereira. That's one of the first issues, right? Just the basic standards of discipline. So yeah. So yeah, hopefully Vitor Pereira can sort of bring in some more discipline to that squad, because that ultimately is the first thing that needs. Yeah, as I said, it's the first thing that we need sorting. The basic standards, not only on the pitch with regards to basics of just marking your men, being goal side, being switched on defensively with back passes and the minor basics of football, but also, and unfortunately, also with sort of the off the pitch stuff and being able to just keep a lid on your emotions. And I think it's just a theme of the squad, and it might be because of some areas of inexperience, and maybe it's also because some of the senior players are naturally quite emotional players. If we think of Lamina and Cunha being some of our main figures in the dressing room, they're both quite emotional, which is some of the reason why we enjoy watching them so much, but also at times they can have a negative effect. But it's just that, just calm it down. And clearly O'Neill wasn't able to keep a cap on it throughout the whole season. So hopefully this new manager, who from what I've read, and I hadn't really heard of him too much prior to all the news over the past few days, but from what I've read, he's got a decent reputation when it comes to keeping discipline within sort of changing rooms, and he's apparently someone who's quite stern of his word. So potentially that is why.
While we calm down for a second, and before we move on to like what's going on now with all the management news, I'll just take a minute to remind everyone that this podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team. The Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football, a unique listening experience that puts fans first. Bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day. Yeah, so that news broke. The news broke on Sunday morning of, it was Sunday morning, wasn't it? The time is like, the days are blending together. Days are blending together of the, Gary Neal being relieved of his post, which, the entire I think, to be fair, I mean, I'm sure there probably is a few people out there who maybe thought he was still the guy. I'm not going to say everyone, but the majority of people probably thought it was long overdue. I know I did. And so it was a relief, as I say, to see the post and then the anxiety of, okay, but now where do we go? Because we've heard that various names have turned this job down in the last couple of weeks. And then out of nowhere, this name, Vitor, what was his surname again? Pereira, Vitor Pereira. Thank you, Nathan. Vitor Pereira is suddenly jumps to the front as like the potential leading candidate, and as of this point, late on Monday night, is by all accounts like the guy they are far into negotiations in terms of contracts and the buyout clause with his club at the moment. So, yeah, what you said, Nathan, you've looked him up. I have too. What did you make of his CV? Do you want to go a bit more into like his experience?
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one. It's a bit of a weird one, and I don't really know how I feel about it. Obviously, for the first couple of games, sort of, he's coming into a very, very difficult situation, and unfortunately for him, the run of fixtures are not going to be favourable by the time he's had a chance to properly work with the squad. But he's a bit of a journeyman. So, he started off at Porto, and that was his longest spell in management, where he's assistant and then full-time coach from sort of 2010 to 2013. And then after that, he's not spent more than 2 seasons at any club, if I'm right in saying. So he kind of jumps around, and he has had some success where he's been. He's won the league with Olympiacos. He also won the league in China with Shanghai, and he's managed in Brazil, and he's obviously Portuguese and speaks very, very good English. So he's got a bit of a left field kind of appointment if it does go through. And it's one that I really don't know how to feel about it. I mean, we kind of spoke about it briefly before we started recording, that it looks as though he's coming in for the short term, given his CV and the fact that he kind of bounces around. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, because if David Moyes were to come in, I'd also think that he'd be in for the short term as well. I don't think I'd see David Moyes as a long-term manager. But at the same time, this guy's obviously got this big CV. Maybe he sees Wolves as the project as well, and it doesn't get much bigger than managing in the Premier League. So yeah, it's a really interesting one, and the fact that he's also another one of Mendes's clients, and Mendes, the super agent who has bailed us out a few times in the past and brought in some of the unbelievable talent that we've had. It maybe is also a sign of what's going on behind the scenes at Wolves, with them sort of bypassing the sporting director and just going straight back to Mendes to find them their guy. So it's an interesting time. I can imagine there's a lot of rumblings going on, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens and what decision they do make. But if it is this Vitor Pereira,
me too.
I just find it interesting. I don't really know how I feel about it right now.
There's a couple of things there, and I'm glad you mentioned them, because otherwise I was going to make sure we did that. The whole, this being a Mendes client, and by all accounts potentially having leapfrogged Matt Hobbs on this one and just gone and swooped in to get this done quickly as like an emergency break glass kind of thing. Come and help us out because we can't get the people we want. And so in this guy comes, and obviously if he gets the job, I'm going to, like we always should do behind a new manager, I'm going to get behind him and hope that this is going to, because we've got to, right? We've only got half a season left. This has got to work. So, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But up front, there's some uncertainty because of the fact that it almost feels like when you look at the CV, the success he had at Porto, arguably he inherited that team. Like you say, he was assistant coach before he was the lead coach. And then it was already pretty strong team, and it had the likes of Moutinho in, ironically, and like a very strong team that he kind of leveled up into, and then won 2 titles. And then after that has kind of like banded around all over the place. But like you said, has always wants to play in the manage in the Premier League. So this might be what he's been waiting for this whole time, and a chance to prove himself again at the highest level. And if he's got discipline, I mentioned on yesterday's pod when I was ranting solo about, I feel like we've seen that arguably one of the issues potentially O'Neill had is that he's become too much of a friend rather than their leader. That because that's a fine line in management. Yes, you've got to be able to put your arm around people and comfort them, but you don't want to just be their best buddy, because then when you need to put your foot down and you need to make those tough choices and discipline people, they're not gonna respect you in the same way. So if this guy can come in and be, I don't want to say distant, but like create that thing of, okay, this is how it is, this is what you're doing, and get everyone almost back to basics, because we keep talking about back to basics, especially at the back. And we say it time and again, we've got talent. And I'm not worried about scoring goals. We can score goals. I just want some consistency, particularly in the back, so that the players know what they're doing. I feel like O'Neill has potentially overcomplicated things again and again by trying to constantly shift and make different changes to find the right thing for every game. And, sometimes it's not that complex, right? Sometimes you just need to have everyone know what they're doing week in, week out, and then work from there.
Yeah, as you said, just building that consistency, I think, is one of the main things, and he's going to have to do it and do it really fast. He's got, the nature of the Premier League is fixtures are always, 4 or 5 days away. It's never a long turnaround, and hopefully over the January transfer window, he can get in a couple of guys that we badly need in defensive positions, and mainly centre half, but just, as you said, bringing in that discipline. But also, I agree with you on the O'Neill front of him being maybe too much of a friend to the players, or at the very least, whatever he was saying
because
wasn't getting across to them.
They all say how much they love him. Sorry, they've all every time they're asked about him, they all come out in a really and it doesn't feel like just a fake press line. They all, and even some of the posts they're putting out afterwards, they all seem to like him as a person, but that doesn't mean he is a leader.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because we talk often about, ex-pros becoming managers and how that transition works. And you've got people like Frank Lampard and Gerrard and people like that who will command that instant respect. They might not be fantastic tactically and having not been in management for a long time, but the fact that they were such high-level pros means that they'll go into a dressing room and they'll have that respect instantly, rather. Whereas O'Neill, if he is becoming mates with them and he's going for that kind of, I was recently a pro style management and sort of almost the unit idea behind it, and him being almost on their level and just being manager by title, and that's kind of the feel that we were getting from it. But the players are thinking, well, you've hardly played at our level, in your playing career. He was for most part of his career sort of championship journeyman, had a couple of few seasons in the Prem, but was never setting the world alight. Whereas some of the players in the Wolves squad are internationals. So it's an interesting dynamic. But one way or another, regardless of the managerial style, he wasn't getting across what he was trying to get across, which ultimately is why he's got the sack. So yeah, hopefully this guy is coming in with, well, he's got a bit more experience in his back. He's got a massive CV. He's managed big name players, notably at Porto, as you said, Moutinho, and he had the likes of Otamendi in that squad and Danilo and all players like this. So yeah, fingers crossed.
There's two things I'm really curious about off the back of this being a Mendes client and potentially the club thinking, bugger this, we're in trouble again. We need to, and it hasn't been working what we're doing. We need to maybe go back to some of the old formula. I'm curious how long a contract they're going to give this guy, because that's really, really intriguing. Is it just going to be a 1 year to see where we end up division wise, or are they going to just go all out again? Because they have this tendency to give people really long contracts all the time, and it's not necessarily the right thing to do. He needs to earn, if this is for him a project of, I want to be a Premier League manager and do it, then make sure he keeps us up by giving him the 1 year and making him be like, you've got to do this. And then the other is, in the January transfer window, are we going to see on the back of this Mendes rewards, payoffs, like exchanges, because this is a Mendes client and there's going to be other factors to this, like, okay, well, I'm getting you this emergency manager, so now we're going to do a deal.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, if whoever comes in can get us out of the situation, obviously they'll deserve a long-term contract with whatever bonus they'd like. because this is the most dire position we've been in a long time. Even the season where we're getting relegated from the Prem in, what was it, 2012 now? 2011, if I'm getting my years right. But yeah, we're talking those levels, if not lower. So it's really, worrying time, but hopefully this sort of new energy can give us that manager bounce, because I think we've been craving for something. We just needed one change, and we were hoping for it to be something that happens on the pitch, but unfortunately it's come to the point where we just need that backroom staff change. And what a new manager brings in is that kind of every player is going to be looking over their shoulder going, oh, is my spot secure? So it ultimately brings the levels up a little bit, because everyone's going to be wanting to perform for a whole new management team. And I'm hoping that pushes the likes of Rodrigo Gomez, Forbes, Hwang, even not of our attacking players, but even the defensive players like Lima and Doherty, players that haven't seen as much game time, whether, I think it's the right choice to be starting them or not, but just those players to start pushing the first team players or the players that are starting week in, week out a lot more, because I think we just need that competitive spirit back, because now it just,
but
I don't
also
know.
to reward them when they do
it's not been right.
do well in
Doesn't
the chance,
feel right at all.
or bench them when they're not. Because I've said before, I was getting really frustrated because it felt to me like O'Neill struggled to make choices to bench people he thought were integral, whether because Lamina was captain, and I felt like he should have been benched at various points for the season because his form has just not been there, and his behaviour on top of that now as well. And he's so just he's walking around shaking his head all the time and looking just like he's on the brink of whether it's exploding in frustration or crying. I just don't want it on the pitch. Like, get yourself together, sort it out, and then Gedge comes on every now and again and makes an assist or scores a goal, and then he's back on the bench. And the people that are coming on and doing well, and Doyle, comes on occasionally, has a cracker. I mean, Brighton is saved like a 1-on-4 situation. I know there's an element of luck, but he still had to make an anticipative move and put himself in the right place. But then the point is, he immediately looks up, plays the pass, creates an opportunity, and he showed it again when he came on in the second half on Saturday. He was like the brightest spark of that whole game, from my opinion. I don't know about yourself, but he showed again why he should be getting more game time, because and it allows the likes of Larson and Cunha to make a run, because they know he's gonna play a ball over the top or into the channel or wherever it is, and he's got a good range of passing. And again, Wedge came on and looked dangerous and created moments, but these people, they just seem to go back to the bench, and O'Neill never wanted to actually give them more minutes. And I feel like at times when he's been frustrating and always putting Bellegarde on, or always putting people in the wrong position and playing Gomez on the wing and Lamina at centre back, it's like, no, just put the right people in the right places and reward them when they do well and bench them when they're not. It doesn't seem that complicated.
No, and but I mean, it's such an easy thing to do. We've got the luxury of hindsight with a lot of these decisions, right? And I think it's difficult when O'Neill's obviously working with the squad week in, week out, and I think that Lamina sort of Doyle situation, and I know sort of Andre was the one who was poor against Ipswich, but Lamina, in my opinion, had a fairly good game against West Ham away from home. I thought he did put on a fairly good captain's performance, where he was, felt like he was everywhere in that first half, and especially start the second half. And it's a difficult one, because I don't know whether I'd have dropped. I definitely think removing the captaincy is the right thing, but then in that situation, does O'Neill get rid of Lamina from the starting lineup because of his off the pitch actions as well? In my opinion, maybe you do that, because of how important discipline is at this moment in the season, not only with our behaviour but also with what we're doing on the pitch. But yeah, it's a difficult one. But whoever does come in, as you said, there needs to be some sort of, to us as fans, we're not seeing much clarity on whether, as you said, good performances are being rewarded. We don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, but we are seeing players come off the bench, as you said, and Gonzalo Guedes is probably the most, the perfect example of that. Is every time he comes off the bench, something is happening, and he's not been given many starts at all. So something there. There's a disjoint somewhere, because even though I'd like to see Gomez do very well, and he's young and he's a bright spark and whatever, his performances have been below standard this season. He's not been a threat going forwards. I don't know if he's had any goal involvements at all yet. I don't think so. Yeah, it's just, if the facts aren't lying and the eye test isn't lying, so
yeah, it's going to be curious.
What is O'Neill seeing that we're not?
Finish up with a couple of points. I will just again take a moment to breathe and recover, and give Nathan a chance to recover. To remind everyone that here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we did spend a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. Well, Nathan, I suppose the biggest question I have for you right now, not to put you on the spot or anything, is do you think that it's too little too late? Are we on the way down, or do you think there is still light at the end of this tunnel?
Look, I think there's. I'm an eternal optimist. Well, I like to think I am, especially on these podcasts. Obviously, I think there is light. I think there's massive amount of quality in the squad, and if you can get a tune out of these international players, then there is definitely hope. We can go on a run. I do believe that. It's just about hopefully getting that tune, and we want to see a team that's playing with the values and the sort of the spirit that O'Neill's had them playing at the start of last season, sort of that fearless attitude. If we see that, then I think as fans we can go back to enjoying watching the Wolves again. Because at the minute, we're just not in that place. So I think the immediate future, I just want to enjoy watching the team play and not having that, as I said earlier, just the sense of impending doom every time the ball goes out for a throw-in or someone fouls someone in that half. And
we're currently 5 points
shot
adrift.
Target at the very least for them.
And I suppose in the grand scheme of things, 2 wins, you're potentially back in amongst it. But still, you look at the coming fixtures, the next game is huge. And yes, even if the new manager is in before then, he's not really going to get to do anything in that time other than get to meet everyone and pencil together a team sheet based on things that people tell him. And it's going to be, there's not going to be a massive changes there. But like you say, you could still get the new manager bounce and people trying to prove themselves, win their spot, all that kind of stuff. There is still potential there. But then after that, it's, Man U at home, Tottenham away, and this is all close together over the Christmas season. Then Forest at home, they're flying. Nuno's got them doing the things that we used to do, and I'm terrified, to be honest with you. And then Newcastle away on the 15th of Jan, Chelsea away, Arsenal at home. Because the problem is this November-December period we spoke about a few weeks back. This was the period. This is the problem, isn't it? This is the period where we were our season. This was the bit of our season that was our season after that.
This was
tough
the easy
start
games.
That ended up being so bad for us. This was the bit where we're going to get our season back on track. And now it hasn't got back on track. And now we're coming to the end of that run and it's going to get tough again. And they're all close together because there is no international break till March or something like that. So it's going to be tough sledding.
Yeah, it is. It is indeed. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you what I would say. So my final thought for this Vitor Pereira is he's had some fantastic holiday destinations, those places to be as a manager. Obviously Portugal to start off with, but Greece, he's had a bit of a spell in China. He's gone to Turkey. He's and Brazil as well. He really loves the exotic places and clearly sees Wolverhampton as a another one at exotic
Exactly.
places.
I
Maybe you'll
said
go
to
for a
Nathan
curry
off
in
air, we
Cannock
were going through the
a crazy
locations on the
Wednesday Eve,
CV, and I'm like, maybe he just likes to travel. Maybe that's the reason he's always on the move. Get your expenses paid to fly from one place to another and set up shop for a couple of years and then go and see another part of the world. Maybe that's it.
That's it.
Clearly.
And obviously Wolverhampton in the Midlands is high on his list of
we're close to the Black
destinations
Country Museum, home of Peaky Blinders. I mean, get in, Yeah. All right, everyone. By the time, by the time you hear this, we may have announcements, we may not. But by the next episode, hopefully, we've got some more news to go on of who's going to be in the dugout for Leicester. The most crazy thing would now is if just another name just comes out of nowhere and is announced. That's going to be the thing that would blow everyone's minds. But anyway, we'll see. Take it easy, people. Try not to stress too much. The festive season is coming, so let's try and be positive. Because remember, out of darkness cometh light.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.